"Linda, my dear girl, could you please bring me a glass of water?" said the grandmother, struggling to sit up in bed. "Sure, Grandma, of course," the granddaughter rushed over. "Are you feeling bad again?" "Yes, dear, I always feel unwell now I'm old, Keto." "No, Grandma, we'll get you better. We'll beat your anemia." "How can we beat it, Linda? You heard how much the treatment costs." "Don't worry, Grandma, I'll find the money. I'll figure it out. You'll be the healthiest with me, my wonderful granddaughter. May the Lord bless you." Linda was already 18. She had finished school and worked as a barista in a local cafe. She hadn't thought about further education yet. There was no time for that. The girl didn't know her parents. Her mother died in childbirth, and her grandmother didn't even know about her father. She only said that he confused the girl and disappeared. Besides her grandmother, Linda had no one closer or dearer. They always lived together in a tiny apartment in a small port town. Laura always tried to give her granddaughter the best. She worked as a seamstress in a small workshop and took orders at home, trying to provide everything necessary for her granddaughter so that the girl didn't feel deprived. Linda grew up a smart girl, always able to stand up for herself. She loved her grandmother more than life itself and was always very afraid that something might happen to her, that she might lose her. And now this anemia. Linda had no idea where to get money for treatment, and quickly at that. By the time you wait for that quota, you could die 300 times over. But Linda believed everything would work out. She would manage to cure her grandmother of this terrible illness. Linda was on her way home from work. It was already around 9 in the evening, getting dark. She still needed to stop by the store and buy something for dinner. Linda passed by an open cafe. A group of young people was having fun there. "Hey, beautiful, come join us," shouted one of them. "Maybe when I have a Rolls Royce, I'll consider it, but for now, no need to shout and bother passers-by," muttered Linda, not slowing down, and walked past. "You're feisty," said the same guy with a bright smile. There was something enticingly forbidden about this guy. Linda tried not to think about it. Nonsense, she needed to think about her grandmother and work, not some spoiled boy who only knew how to sit in a cafe and have fun with his friends. The girl turned into the nearest shop. She quickly grabbed everything she needed and stepped out onto the street with a paper bag. She was looking down to avoid stumbling. The steps were old and rickety. The girl didn't notice the same guy with the bright smile who had just been sitting in the cafe with his friends. "Heavy bag, sweetheart?" he asked, smiling. "Just a normal bag," Linda replied. "Can't you sit in the cafe? Have your friends dispersed? Can't I help a girl who stole my heart? Let's skip that, shall we? I've read enough of that in cheap books when I was 14. So come on, go have fun." Linda walked away briskly from that ladies' man who apparently was burdened with no problems at all. Most likely he had a wealthy daddy or mommy who solved all life's difficulties for him, leaving him only to roam the city at night and hang out with friends or perhaps with girls. Linda was annoyed that she was thinking about him. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she simply lacked girlish joys. After all, Linda couldn't even afford to just hang out with her girlfriends. They all were dating someone, enjoying their youth, while she had to think about how to survive, how to find money for her grandmother's treatment. The doctor said it's better to start it soon. Then there's a chance that everything will be fine, and Donna Laura will quickly recover and live many happy years ahead. No, Linda would do everything to find the money and pay for this treatment. She had no other choice. "Hello, Granny," Linda called from the doorway. "Hello, my dear," Grandma responded with a voice more lively than usual. "How are you today?" "You know, a bit better, not lying around like a log all the time," watered the flowers. "You're such a clever girl. How happy I am. Soon I'll cure you. We'll ride bicycles together." "Oh, granddaughter, what kind of cyclist am I?" "A very wonderful cyclist." The granddaughter kissed Grandma on the cheek and began to unpack the groceries from the bag. The next day, Linda, as usual, stood at her usual place in the cafe behind the bar counter. There were few visitors in the morning, probably because it's a day off and people decided to rest after a week of work. Suddenly, he entered, that guy who had been waiting for Linda near the shop with the slanting porch. It's fate, he exclaimed, approaching the counter and looking into Linda's eyes. It's just a small town, the girl replied calmly. You're likely to encounter a familiar face somewhere. No, it's something else. Until what time are you here today? Want me to treat you to the tastiest ice cream in town? I know this town inside out. There's no ice cream here worth admiring. Are you placing an order? Linda adjusted her hair. Yes, I want coffee with Bailey's. Can you make it? A girly drink, don't you think? Maybe, but today I really wanted, Linda. He stared at the badge on the young barista's left pocket of her uniform. I'm Jordy, a couple of minutes and your coffee will be ready. Jordy, thank you, sweetheart. He sat at the nearest table and stared out the window. Georgie finished his cup of coffee and headed toward the exit with brisk steps. On the table, he left a generous tip and a small note. It felt so unusual to see such a note in the 21st century, in the age of high technology when everyone communicated solely through messengers and phones. It reminded her of something childish. Charming Linda, the thief of my heart, I beg you do not refuse me. I will come for the closing and we will take a walk. I'll treat you to just ice cream. I think of you all the time, Georgie. The girl read on a scrap of paper and tucked it into her pocket. They walked along a small alley and ate strawberry ice cream. It was so easy with this guy. Now he didn't seem like the obnoxious poser who throws around pretty phrases just for fun or to show off in front of his buddies. They simply chatted about everything and enjoyed the evening coolness. Where do you study? Georgie asked. Not anymore. School is behind me. And what's next? Don't you plan to apply anywhere? Not at the moment. I have a sick grandmother. I need to work now. I'm saving up for her treatment. She's everything I have in this world. I understand. Georgie suddenly stopped, pulled the girl towards him, and kissed her. Linda began to push the guy away, but the kiss felt so tender, so pure to her that she simply couldn't resist him. Linda had been dating Georgie for about a month now. She felt like she wanted to spend her whole life with this person. She fell head over heels for this smiling guy, eagerly awaiting each new meeting. The girl couldn't focus on work, slept poorly, and completely lost her peace. Linda, what's going on, my dear? One evening Grandma asked when her granddaughter brought her a glass of warm milk with honey before bed. Nothing happened, Linda replied, avoiding eye contact. Have you fallen in love, Laura? Linda's mother asked directly. Grandma, what are you saying? Hi, I just started dating a nice guy, that's all. With a nice guy sighed, Grandma, your mother also once met a nice guy, but he disappeared from her life too quickly as soon as he found out she was expecting a baby. He vanished too quickly. Oh, don't start now, or you'll start crying again. But at least you have me. Yes, I thank heavens for that every day, but still, my dear, be careful, watch out that this nice guy of yours doesn't hurt you. You know it's very easy to deceive an 18-year-old girl, believe me, old lady. Grandma, you're not an old lady at all, I'll be careful, I promise. Linda kissed her grandmother on the forehead and turned off the lamp. Why does the coffee smell so bad, Ramon? Linda asked her coffee shop owner one morning. It usually smells like that, he replied, unpacking a box. I'm telling you, it smells like sour milk or something. Did you change suppliers? No, I haven't changed anything. Are your hormones acting up or something? My hormones are just fine, the girl pouted and started wiping the cups. The whole day, Linda felt strange. Either she had eaten something wrong or she caught a virus. Her head was pounding and her stomach was churning, a terrible condition. At night, Linda couldn't sleep. She pushed away bad thoughts. No, this can't be true, but the delay that had occurred spoke more eloquently than any words. The girl decided to put an end to these doubts. She barely waited for morning and hurriedly dashed to the pharmacy. Fortunately, she had the day off that day. She tried to take on more shifts so weekends were a real luxury. Yes, Linda saw a little red cross that almost instantly appeared on the test display. Holy Virgin Mary, no, not this, not now, muttered Linda, sitting on the edge of the bathtub. She had hoped that everything in her life would work out. Georgie came from a good family. He had money. He could help with treatment for Grandma. A child was not in the plans for the girl, as she hadn't achieved anything in this life yet. But the Lord sent her this baby for a reason, so it was destined to come into the world. Linda closed her eyes. She remembered Georgie's words. "You know, I want us to have 3 children," the guy said as he escorted her home. "Why 3? The girl was surprised. "1 for you, the other for me, and the third for these 2 older ones." "Well, you made it up. What children?" "We don't have time for children at all. We need to work and achieve something in this life. One thing doesn't hinder the other." He smiled and took the girl's hand. "One thing doesn't hinder the other," whispered Linda. She decided to inform Georgie about her condition as soon as possible. He would surely support her and figure out how they could live on. Linda quickly tapped a message to her beloved. They agreed to meet at the fountain at 6 o'clock in the evening. Linda was very nervous. She was sure Georgie would take this news gladly, but she still felt slightly anxious. "What did you want to say, sweetheart?" Georgie asked. "I don't have much time. Dad asked me to go with him on business." "Georgie, I'm pregnant," Linda blurted out. "What? What did you say?" "What?" "You heard. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby. Are you happy? Are you out of your mind? What baby could there be?" "I'm not ready to change diapers and lose sleep at night. I have a bunch of plans for the next 10 years, but there's no room for sniveling babies." "But there's a baby already in my belly. He can't disappear." Linda barely held back her tears. Maybe I'll help you. I'll find a doctor. And are you suggesting I get an abortion, huh?" Linda sat down on the edge of the fountain. Water droplets pleasantly cooled her heated back skin. "Well, yes, isn't there any other way?" "Actually, there is, giving birth." "Yes, but that's not the solution for us." At that moment, Georgie's friends approached. "Hi," they cheerfully greeted. "Are we interrupting?" "No, not at all. Just Linda got a little carried away playing future mommy, right, sweetheart?" He turned to Linda. She was silent, tears choking her, but the girl tried not to burst into tears right here and now. "You know, sweetheart, you're really beautiful and you're just amazing in bed, but I'm not ready for all this vanilla stuff like marriage and having a child, so let's part ways nicely, without unnecessary drama. If you need help with a doctor, you know how to find me." And then Georgie simply turned around and strode off with his buddies towards his house. Linda sat there, tears streaming down her cheeks endlessly. At first, she tried to fight them, wiping them away with the back of her hand, but then she stopped, letting them flow freely. The girl sat there, probably for half an hour before finally getting up and heading home. She didn't want to go home. Her grandmother would surely notice that she had been crying, and then hiding the truth from her would be impossible, so Linda turned onto her favorite alley, one that was wild and abandoned. There were usually few people there, and she could enjoy the silence. Linda sat down on an old, peeling bench. "What the hell?" A voice came from right next to her. "That darn squirrel ran away again, damn it." A guy in worn-out jeans and beaten-up sneakers emerged onto the path from behind the trees. "Wow, this is a stroke of luck." The guy stared at Linda, then started clicking his camera incessantly. "What are you doing?" Linda angrily muttered, covering her face with her hand. "Just walk past you, half-baked photographer. You'd better buy yourself new sneakers instead of wearing these beat-up ones, or did you spend all your money on this fancy gadget? You're such a mean girl, and you look so sweet and delicate." The guy smiled, lowering his camera. "If you're going to be mean here, did someone hurt you?" the photographer asked. "Life hurt me, photographer, and I really am an unfinished photographer. I need to submit my final project. It's called 3 Images, but I just can't find a model. And now what? Now it seems I found one. Will you agree to be my model for just a week? I'll pay. I can even pay in advance." "Oh, come on. You'll pay? You can't earn money for sneakers for yourself, but you'll pay him? I can afford a cup of coffee and ice cream myself sometimes. So walk on, photographer, go find squirrels, they'll pose for you for free." Listen, I'm serious. I have money, really, and sneakers. I just don't care what sneakers I wear as long as they're comfortable. What do I need to do? Linda softened a bit. First, tell me your name. By the way, I'm Santiago. I'm Linda. She reached out her hand. Pleased to meet you. So, are you in? I really need the money, not for nonsense, but for my grandmother's treatment. And the treatment costs a pretty penny. I could pay in installments, but there are no installments yet. Listen, let's do this. I'll pay for your grandmother's treatment. I'll borrow from my uncle if my savings aren't enough. Agree? Linda nodded. Such an offer sounded too tempting. Her grandmother would live a full life, and Linda wouldn't have to jump up at night to listen if she was breathing or not. But the money up front, the girl quickly said. Agreed. Give me your number. Santiago took out his phone from his pocket. Linda dictated it and looked at the guy. He had such unusual eyes, deep but at the same time naive and even childish. They glowed as if little fireflies lived in them, just about to jump out. Any good news for today? Linda thought on her way home. She had firmly decided not to tell her grandmother anything about the child or about that strange photographer either. Her phone beeped. It was Santiago, who else, sending her a flower emoji to save his number. Grandma, I have wonderful news for you. Linda shouted as she entered the cramped hallway. Grandma didn't respond. She must have fallen asleep, she thought, and went into her grandmother's room. When the girl entered, she almost fainted. Dona Laura was lying on the floor, her head thrown back. Oh, Holy Mary, not this. Linda frantically started dialing Santiago's number. Yes, Linda? By heaven's gift, the guy jokingly replied. Santiago, this is no time for jokes. Please, help my grandmother. She's unconscious. Hurry, she needs to go to the hospital urgently. Give me the address. I'll be there in a minute. They sat in the dimly lit corridor of the local clinic. Linda cried, and Santiago tried to calm her down. It was so strange. They had only known each other for about an hour and a half, and here they were sitting together, waiting to hear what the doctor would say. To Linda, it felt like this guy in worn-out sneakers was an old friend or even a brother. She had never had a brother, a sister, or even a close friend, and now it felt like she did. Sonora Pars is out of danger, said the elderly doctor, seemingly appearing out of nowhere in the corridor. They'll release her home. Linda jumped up. No, we'll observe her for a few days. Didn't they tell you about the treatment plan? Yes. When can we start? I'm ready. We're ready to pay. Linda glanced at Santiago. He nodded and started negotiating with the doctor, jotting down something in a notebook with a stubby pencil. Truly eccentric, this photographer in this day and age, jotting something down in a notebook in the era of gadgets. Linda was nervous, feeling nauseous. Suddenly, she remembered she was expecting a child. So many events had taken place that day, her head was spinning. Yes, she was pregnant. The girl hadn't had a chance to properly think about it yet. First George with his teasing, then this photographer jumping out of the bushes, and now her grandmother, who suddenly decided to scare her granddaughter and collapse unconscious in her room. Let's go, I'll take you home, said Santiago, taking Linda's hand. Is everything okay? Will Grandma start the treatment? Yes, starting tomorrow. I've sorted everything out. Payment can be made to the clinic's account, so no problems. Thank you. Linda squeezed the guy's hand. She had never been so grateful to anyone in her life, except her grandmother. Shall we start tomorrow? Santiago suddenly asked, opening the car door. What? Linda was surprised. Our project called Three Faces. The guy smiled. Oh, that, yes. Whatever you say, as long as Grandma, she'll be fine. Don't worry. They drove through their hometown, which had already sunk into darkness. It was eerily quiet and peaceful. Rarely did they come across any passers-by. Everyone had scattered to their homes. How great it was when someone could support you, especially when it was so necessary. Linda couldn't sleep. She couldn't fall asleep. Too much had happened. Thoughts were racing through her mind, and there was that nasty feeling of nausea. She sat at the table in the small kitchen, sipping green tea with lemon. It helped a little to combat the waves of nausea and provided some slight calming effect. What to do now, Linda thought. How to deal with Grandma and now with a child too. She really has no one else to rely on. Linda's thoughts slowly shifted to another track. Santiago, the photographer, was so peculiar, calling her heaven's gift for some reason. He was unlike the guys Linda had encountered in the town since childhood. There seemed to be a whole world in his eyes, a magical and somewhat wild world, and his passion for photography simply amazed her. He was willing to pay for her grandmother's treatment just to look at her through his fancy lens and click away. Funny, they met at 6 in the same place on the old alley. It was the time Linda finished her shift that day. Today's theme will be modesty, said Santiago, placing a package on the bench. What's this? Linda pointed at the package. It's what will help you embody the theme: scarves, blankets, basically everything you need. I've prepared well. We will make this project happen. The best agencies will collaborate with me. Santiago dreamily looked up at the sky. You're dreaming big, aren't you? Linda chuckled. Instead of just going to work, here you are with your camera, chasing girls and bringing along a bag of mysterious stuff. That's because I want this to be my job. My uncle pushed me into law school, but I couldn't last 2 years. I left. It's not for me, all those laws, articles. Mine is the sky covered in feathery clouds, the sun setting, burning like a spark in the thickening blue of the sky, and a girl with eyes the color of moss, living on the bark of a tree. My eyes are just ordinary. Some moss came up with that, all right. Tell me, what do I need to do? Linda threw her bag on the bench. Here, take this scarf and drape it over your head. He handed the girl a snowy silk scarf. Do you want to turn me into a nun? Linda scoffed. No, just a very modest girl. It's just an image. I'm not asking you to become one, although that's impossible. Linda threw the scarf over her dark hair and looked at the guy. Yes, that's it. Look at that tree. No, not into the lens, at that tree there, genius, the Virgin Mary. What eyes I could gaze into for eternity. Lower your left hand a bit, left, yes, like that. Just fabulous. And so it went on for about 2 hours until it was completely dark. Santiago, from a regular guy in worn-out jeans and scuffed sneakers, turned into some sort of incomprehensible creature. He squatted down, jumped onto the bench, and clicked away with his big camera. At first, Linda thought it was nonsense, but after a while, she herself became immersed in this world, as if being infected by the photographer's madness. Now she wanted to strike a pose that, as she thought, suited the moment best. You're a fantastic model, praised Santiago. You seem to just know what to do, he added, lowering the camera and looking at Linda. You know, I need some photos at sunrise. Can we arrange that? Linda shrugged and wearily sat down on the bench. How's your grandma? The guy asked, sitting down next to her. She's still too weak, but the treatment has started. I'm so glad. Thank you, crazy photographer. Listen, let's grab a bite to eat. I've probably starved you. I know this cafe, they have delicious grilled meat. You'll love it. No, I don't feel like going anywhere. Want to have dinner at my place? Linda simply offered. Perfect, let's order some food. I'm not really a fan of crowded places myself. Let's go. He grabbed a bag and pulled Linda along. They sat in the kitchen, enjoying various delicacies that Santiago had ordered from the same cafe he initially wanted to take Linda to. Why are you looking at me so strangely? Asked Linda, taking a bite of a thin flatbread. Did I get ketchup on me? No, sorry. It's just your soul, incredible. You seem like you were born to be a model. You could make millions from your photos. Oh, come on. How can anyone make money from that? Very easily. You're just out of touch. Beauty, yeah right, that's not for me. I'm just a barista. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Do you only work? Are you not studying anywhere? Nowhere, Linda shook her head. I don't have time for studying. I need to earn a living, and my grandma decided to get sick on top of it. But we'll beat this anemia, won't we? Of course, we will. There's no other way. He looked at her with such tenderness and unwavering confidence that Linda's heart warmed. You're a good guy, Santiago. I haven't met anyone like you before, really. Oh, come on. I'm just an ordinary guy raised by my aunt and uncle. What about your parents? Sorry if I'm prying. No, it's fine. They died when I was 9, car accident. I'm so sorry, Linda said sadly. My mom died shortly after I was born, and I've never seen my father. Not even my grandma knows who he is or where he lives. Yeah, life sucks, Santiago said softly, but there's nothing we can do about it. Let's drink to people finding each other, those who truly belong together. He filled the glasses with orange juice. Well said. Finding your person in this life can indeed be difficult. You think you found the one you dreamed of, but they turn out to be a jerk. Yeah, Linda, someone really heard you. I loved him like a fool. I thought I found a decent guy with whom I'd have a good family. He promised me, we'll go there, and we'll have kids and a house with a pool. But in reality, Linda took a sip from her glass, and in reality, Santiago looked at her attentively and very seriously. In reality, he offered to help with money for an abortion and then ditched me to go drink with his buddies. I was just another fling for him, a girl to have fun with, that's all. Linda lowered her gaze, her dark, thick lashes fluttered slightly. And you agreed? Santiago asked quietly, sorry for prying into your personal business. What? Linda seemed to emerge from her thoughts. So, did you accept that guy's proposal? No, the girl replied shortly. I truly can't offer anything to this little one, but I can't bring myself to kill him. Of course, I didn't tell Granny anything, but I'll have to eventually. And then there's work. You're doing the right thing, Linda. If the Lord gives a child, he surely knows what he's doing. He smiled and took the girl's hand. Thank you, Santiago. You're really very kind. It's a pity your parents didn't live to see this day. They would have been delighted to have such a wonderful son. Santiago squeezed Linda's hand tighter. Goosebumps ran all over her body. There was something in him, a mixture of tenderness and strength, reliability and romanticism. So, tomorrow at dawn? Santiago asked and unexpectedly pressed her hand to his lips. Wake me up, okay? I'm terrible at waking up. I usually wake up when it's time to go to work. Linda chuckled softly. Deal. I'll pick you up, and we'll have breakfast together before our photo shoot. Tomorrow's theme is rocker, although we haven't shot the modest one yet. Santiago winked mischievously at the girl. With you, one never gets bored. Leaning back on the chair, Linda said, day turned into day. All 3 looks were captured, and Santiago defended his graduation project. He was offered to collaborate with a major advertising agency. With Linda's consent, he placed her most glamorous photos on stock websites. We'll make good money, you and I, Santiago cheerfully remarked one day as he walked Linda home after a short stroll. Do you think anyone will buy my photos? Linda asked incredulously. Of course, they'll line up for them. How is Dona Laura feeling? They're discharging her tomorrow. Will you help me pick her up? Of course, just let me know when, and I'll rush over. Some night on a white horse you are. What a splendid guy your Santiago is. One couldn't help but fall for such a young man, Grandma said as she and Linda were left alone in her room. Santiago helped her settle into her chair and left on some errands. Yes, Santiago is very kind, almost as if he's from another era when noble knights weren't a rarity. Linda refrained from mentioning Geordie and his treachery. She also kept silent about her pregnancy for now. The most important thing was for Grandma to fully recover and regain her strength. They would manage. They would definitely manage. Now, Linda began to catch herself thinking about her crazy photographer almost all the time. Her body shuddered pleasantly when she remembered his eyes and the way he kissed her hand casually as they chatted over dinner in the small kitchen of her and her grandmother's apartment. The coffee shop had already closed, but they sat at the table, unwilling to leave. "Let's not stay too long," shouted the owner from somewhere in the back. "Make sure to lock the door properly, Linda." "Okay, Ramon, just another half hour, and we'll go. I'll lock everything up as it should be." "I'm out," Ramon's voice came from the back exit. "Linda, come out with me," Santiago suddenly said. "What?" Linda almost choked. "I want you to be my wife." "Are you out of your mind, photographer? You know that I know. I think I can raise this child to be a decent person, unlike his real father." Linda was silent. A lump rose in her throat. "And aren't you afraid I'll say yes?" The girl tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I hope you do," Santiago smiled. He leaned in towards Linda, and they merged into a long kiss. Linda was ready to spend her whole life like this. It was a different kiss, not the sharp and demanding one that Geordie gave her, but gentle and full of love. "Let's go. I'll introduce you to Uncle and Aunt," said Santiago, getting up from his chair. A week later, they celebrated their engagement, and 2 months later, they got married. Although they didn't have a proper wedding, Grandma and Aunt Leo prepared plenty of delicious food. The table was overflowing with treats. "Darling, you need to quit your job," Aunt Leah said as they cleaned up after the feast. "Think about the baby." "Thank you, Aunt, but I can't. We need the money so much." "Can't we handle it?" she smiled, drying her hands with a towel. "You have us, me and Uncle Theo, and Santiago is doing so well with his photographs, even though his uncle used to scold him for dropping out of university. But I always knew my nephew would succeed. If only UW, my late sister Monica's son. Life was so hard on her. If not for that terrible accident," tears welled up in Mrs. Leah's eyes, "you know, you resemble her. Perhaps Santiago fell for you head over heels too?" "You'd say that as well, head over heels," Linda said, wiping a plate. "Of course, head over heels. The boy has completely lost his mind. Have you seen how he looks at you?" "How?" The girl was surprised. "The way a loving parent looks at their precious child. He truly loves you, dear." "I love Santiago too," Linda replied quietly. "May God bless you with happiness for many, many years." Mrs. Leah hugged Linda and patted her on the back. Marlena was born at the end of April. Both the mother and the baby were quickly discharged home. They both felt great. Donna Laura and Aunt Leah ordered a real celebration for the girls' return home. The lawn in front of the house was decorated with balloons, flags, and ribbons, and live flowers adorned a small gazebo. The young mother was speechless with admiration. She just looked at this magic and silently hugged Uncle Theo and Leah and Grandma one by one. "Welcome home, darling," Donna Laura whispered softly. "Thank you, Grandma. How have you been without me?" "Fine, very well. Leah treats me like her own mother, and so does Theo. We are a real close-knit family." "Yes, that's true. Just don't make me cry, or I'll start crying too." Linda stroked her grandmother's cheek. "I won't, my dear. I won't." "Let me meet my granddaughter," Uncle Theo exclaimed. "Where is this beauty? She takes after her mother." "Don't shout, Theo," and Leah said reproachfully, "You will wake up Mary Elena. It's better if Linda and I go to the nursery and put the baby in her wonderful crib." She glanced at the young mother who stood next to Uncle Theo and smiled. "Finally, I'm home," Linda thought as the plane landed at the airport of her hometown. She was flying from the capital where her husband had business. Santiago was delayed a bit, so Linda was returning home alone. The spouses didn't want to move from their hometown, so they often had to fly to the capital and back. They jokingly called themselves migratory birds. Although it was comfortable to fly in the business class compartment, they still wanted to get in the air as soon as possible, and they also wanted to see their relatives. It was time to leave the airplane cabin, and suddenly Linda saw him. Yes, it was Geordie, only he was being pushed in a wheelchair by some elderly man. The guy had changed a lot. He had become thinner, and somehow his face looked gaunt. Their eyes met. Linda read in the gaze of the unsuccessful father of her daughter the longing and pain. "Hello," Linda said softly. "Hello, beauty," Geordie replied and tried to smile, but he didn't succeed very well. "Linda, wait a minute," Geordie said to his companion. "I'll exchange a few words with this girl, okay?" replied the man who was pushing the wheelchair ahead of him and stepped aside. "You've become completely different," Geordie began. "So elegant, and success seems to radiate from you. I just met a wonderful person, Geordie. If it weren't for you back then, I might never have met Santiago." "Who is this Santiago?" "A photographer, a very good photographer," Linda simply replied. "And the child? Did you solve that problem without me?" "You still don't understand, Geordie. A child is not a problem but a heavenly gift. Mary Elena is already 5 years old. She's smart and beautiful. She dances and sings very well. And you, what do you do?" "I recently became a child psychologist. I've already been invited to a children's development center in our city." "Yeah, great. As you can see, I have nothing to boast about. Got into an accident on the very day I left you there by the fountain. Had quite a blast that evening with my buddies and then, like an idiot, got on my bike. Well, I crashed into a truck. The doctor said I was born again. Usually, in such a collision, people die instantly. It would have been better if it happened." He swallowed hard. "Don't talk like that. You can't beckon death upon yourself," Linda sympathetically replied. "I'm really sorry this happened to you. Is there really nothing that can be done?" "No, nothing. I'll be confined to this damn wheelchair for the rest of my days," Geordie replied bitterly. "I'm really sorry. How are your friends? Are you still in touch with them?" "What friends? Who needs a disabled person? They have their own lives. They don't even visit me. A couple of times, they popped in when I was discharged from the hospital, and that's it." "Yeah, you really have great friends, Geordie. It's my own fault. You get the friends you deserve. Don't despair. Life goes on. You need to keep living. If not for yourself, then at least for your parents. Just because you can't walk doesn't mean you should give up." "Maybe you're right, sweetheart," the young man smiled, "but it's hard, very hard to accept. I understand, but you have to try. Sorry, I have to go, they're waiting for me." A girl in a bright red dress jumped out of the car. "Mommy, I've been waiting for you so much. Is Dad coming soon?" Maria Elena hugged her mother. "Yes, sweetie, tomorrow or the day after. I missed you so much. I've learned a new dance. You're my smart girl." Linda took her daughter in her arms. "She looks so much like you," Geordie said. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "We'll see each other someday," Linda said and headed to the car. Rick came over and drove Geordie to the car, which was waiting for them nearby. That evening, Geordie sat in the garden for a long time, looking at the stars and thinking. He thought about his life, so abruptly cut short for him. There were so many plans, to work in a prestigious company, to travel the world. And now, he could hardly do anything independently. The only travels were visits to the Capital Clinic, where he underwent treatment courses several times a year. But there was no result whatsoever. He couldn't feel his legs, couldn't move a single finger. Geordie often remembered Linda, that bold girl with mischievous eyes and two playful braids that made her look like a schoolgirl. He recalled the coffee with Bailey she used to make especially for him, teasing that it was a girly drink, and her kisses. He had never experienced such kisses in his life. And he, the fool, didn't appreciate it. Saw her as something ordinary, just another girl to have fun with. What if he hadn't left Linda back then? What if they had gotten married and had a child? What would have happened then? Maybe he wouldn't have been in that terrible accident and would now be happily raising his little daughter. Jordy didn't know the answer to that question. Nobody did. Such things were known only to the universe. It's been a while since I photographed my wonderful model, Santiago said before going to sleep. But am I still a model? That was 5 years ago when I was something, just a girl. And now you're even more beautiful, my green-eyed witch, her husband said tenderly, kissing Linda on the shoulder. You're still a crazy photographer. I think you love your cameras the most in the world. Or rather, your cameras not at all, my darling. I love you and Marlena much more. I don't believe you, Linda jokingly poked his chest with her index finger. I'll prove it to you right now, Santiago began showering his wife's neck with small kisses. I recently saw Jordy, Linda said, cuddling up to Santiago and resting her head on his shoulder. Who, he didn't understand. He's Mar Elena's biological father. I hope you're not falling for him again, Santiago winked at his wife. No, of course not, silly. I only love you, my photographer in worn-out jeans and sneakers that have long begged to be thrown away. Remember that day we met on the abandoned alley? How could I forget that day? That's when I met the best girl in the world, he kissed Linda on the forehead. And then he got me, and then got drunk with his buddies, got on his bike, and crashed into a truck. Horrible. He was quickly punished by heaven, Santiago said slowly. God loves you very much, my green-eyed fairy. You know, I feel sorry for him. He's so helpless in that wheelchair, Linda. He brought it upon himself. Stop pitying that scoundrel who just took advantage of your naivety and then discarded you like an unwanted thing. Thank you, my dear, thank you, Linda said emotionally and hugged her husband even tighter. For what? Just for being you, for coming out of the bushes with your camera and saving my grandmother and me too, pulling us out of that hell from which we had neither the strength nor the ability to escape. Linda, my girl, what are you saying? I thank fate for meeting you every day. I think, although, you know, there's still one debt behind you. What debt? Linda sat up on her elbow and looked into her husband's eyes. I want a son. I already have a daughter, now I want a son. Oh no, I've just started working as a psychologist. You'll have to wait for your son, his wife laughed. I've already waited too long. I'm not waiting anymore. I think now is the perfect time, he began tickling Linda. 9 months later, Santiago Alonso proudly called himself the father of Mar Elena's daughter and Marcus's son. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.